The crystalline spires of Celestia's central justice hub pierced the violet sky like frozen lightning, their surfaces reflecting the light of three moons in hypnotic patterns. Inside the sterile white chamber, Nova stood with her head high, her silver-streaked hair catching the artificial light as she faced the Council of Technological Authority. Beside her, Lyra trembled slightly, her normally bright azure skin taking on a paler shade. Engineering specialists Nova and Lyra of House Technica. The chief counselor's voice boomed through the chamber, each word precise and cold as space itself. You stand accused of the highest crime our society recognizes, the unauthorized distribution of restricted technology to the lower castes. Nova's fingers tightened into fists, but she kept her expression neutral. The evidence floated in holographic displays around them. Schematics for medical regenerators, educational neural interfaces, and atmospheric purifiers. All technology the Council hoarded for the elite. We helped people, Nova said, her voice clear and unwavering. Children in the lower sectors were dying from atmospheric toxins. The neural interfaces could have given them a chance at. Silence. The chief counselor's face twisted with disgust. You have violated the fundamental principle of Celestian society. Technology must be controlled, distributed according to merit and status. Your actions threaten to destabilize thousands of years of careful social engineering. Lyra stepped forward, her voice soft but determined. But isn't merit meant to be earned? How can anyone earn it if they're denied the tools to learn, to grow, to? Your ideology is precisely why you are dangerous. Another counselor cut in, her silver eyes narrowing. Earth will teach you the true meaning of hierarchy. Nova's heart stopped for a moment. Earth. The word felt foreign on her tongue. That primitive planet on the edges of known space, barely past its digital age. The chief counselor's smile was cruel. Yes, you are hereby stripped of your citizenship, your status, and your rights. You will be transported to Earth and given as property to a human guardian. Perhaps serving a species you consider beneath you will provide the necessary perspective. Holographic restraints materialized around their wrists, humming with energy. Nova felt Lyra's hand brush against hers, a small gesture of comfort in the face of their world crumbling around them. Your human guardian has already been selected, the counselor continued. James Chen, a technological entrepreneur. You will serve him, learn the price of your arrogance, and demonstrate to any other potential dissidents the cost of defying natural order. As guards approached to escort them out, Nova caught a glimpse of their reflection in the polished walls. Two daughters of Celestia's most prestigious engineering house, now condemned to exile on a world that still burned fossil fuels. But beneath her fear, a spark of defiance burned. They had tried to help their people evolve beyond this rigid caste system. Whatever Earth held for them, it couldn't be worse than watching children die because of artificial scarcity. The journey to the transport ship was a blur of sterile corridors and processing stations. Their engineering credentials were erased, their neural augments deactivated, leaving them feeling half-blind without the constant stream of data they were accustomed to. In the small holding cell of the transport ship, Lyra finally broke down. What will happen to us, Nova? The humans. The stories we've heard. Nova pulled her friend close, watching the violet skies of Celestia disappear through the small viewport. The stories are propaganda, Lyra. Remember how wrong they were about the lower sectors, about how violent and unintelligent they were supposed to be. We found the opposite. People helping each other, sharing what little they had. But Earth, they still wage wars, don't they? Their technology is so primitive. Nova's lips curved into a small smile. Their technology is uncontrolled. Free. Maybe that's what really scares the Council. A world where innovation isn't locked behind case barriers, where anyone can invent, create, share. The ship's engines hummed to life, and Nova felt the familiar pull of FTL travel beginning. She looked at the tears crystallizing on Lyra's cheeks, a unique trait of their species, and brushed them away. "Whatever happens," Nova whispered, "we stay together. We survived the Academy's trials, we survived the lower sector projects, and we'll survive Earth." Besides, she added with a hint of her old humor, "How bad can one human be?" As their ship pierced the veil between stars, neither Nova nor Lyra could have imagined how that question would be answered, or how their punishment would become an unexpected path to something their rigid, hierarchical society had never taught them to value: freedom, purpose, and maybe even love. The stars streaked by outside their viewport, each one carrying them further from the only home they'd known, toward a destiny that would challenge everything they believed about humans, about themselves, and about the true meaning of evolution. Earth's atmosphere burned orange around their descent vessel, so different from the smooth anti-gravity landings on Celestia. Nova watched the approaching landscape through the viewport, her enhanced vision picking out details in the darkness below. Sprawling cities glowed like circuits on a motherboard, but between them stretched vast areas of darkness. Wilderness, something that hadn't existed on Celestia for millennia. Final approach to Chen Research Complex, Pacific Northwest region, the automated system announced. Lyra gripped Nova's hand tighter as they descended through clouds heavy with rain. The landing pad emerged from the mist, a sleek platform jutting from the side of a mountain, overlooking a valley where modern buildings blended seamlessly with the forest. It wasn't the primitive concrete jungle they'd expected. Instead, solar panels curved like leaves among the trees, and wind turbines spun silently in the distance. As the ship's doors hissed open, Earth's air hit them for the first time, rich with organic compounds, heavy with moisture, alive in a way Celestia's carefully filtered atmosphere never was. Their escort droid guided them down the ramp, their restraints still humming softly. A single figure waited for them, standing in the rain without an umbrella. James Chen was younger than they'd expected, maybe in his early 30s by human standards. He wore simple clothes, a black sweater, jeans, and boots. But Nova's engineering eye caught the subtle tech woven into the fabric. Smart textiles, temperature regulation, water resistance. "Welcome to Earth," he said simply, his dark eyes studying them with an intensity that made Nova straighten her spine. She'd expected arrogance, cruelty, or at least smugness from someone who'd just been gifted two advanced aliens as property. Instead, his expression held something else: curiosity, and perhaps a hint of concern. The escort droid floated forward. "Transfer of custody requires biometric confirmation, Mr. Chen. Please note that subjects Nova and Lyra are now your legal property under the Interstellar Sentient Exchange Treaty. You may establish any parameters for their service. Deactivate their restraints." James interrupted, his voice sharp. The droid paused. "Sir, standard protocol requires a 48-hour adjustment period with restraints to ensure." "I don't care about protocol. Deactivate them. Now." Nova felt the restraints dissolve, her wrists tingling as circulation returned. Beside her, Lyra rubbed her own wrists, looking at James with a mixture of confusion and wariness. "Follow me," James said, turning toward the largest building. "And stay close. Mountain lions sometimes come down from the ridge at night." The interior of the complex was a startling blend of Earth and alien technology. Holographic displays floated alongside conventional screens, and Nova spotted at least 3 different types of quantum processors as they passed various labs. Most surprising was the number of plants growing everywhere, not just in designated gardens, but integrated into the architecture itself, climbing walls and hanging from ceilings. James led them to a residential wing, stopping at a comfortable-looking apartment. "These are your quarters," he said, opening the door to reveal a spacious living area with 2 bedrooms, a kitchen, and a stunning view of the valley. "There's clothes in the closets, food in the kitchen. The AI can help you with anything you need to understand about Earth customs or technology." Lyra spoke for the first time since landing. We don't have to share a cell." Something flickered across James's face. Anger, but not directed at them. "This isn't a prison. You're not going to be locked up or restrained. I know that's not what the Celestian Council intended, but I don't care what they intended. Nova took a step forward. Then what do you intend? Why accept custody of two exiled engineers? James met her gaze directly. Because I've spent 10 years studying Celestian technology, trying to understand how a society could be so advanced and so backwards at the same time. Your crime was sharing knowledge with people who needed it. On Earth, we call that teaching, not treason. He turned to leave, then paused at the door. Get some rest. Tomorrow, I'll show you what we're working on here. Real projects, helping real people. If you want to help, you can. If you don't, he shrugged. The apartment's still yours. I won't force anyone to work for me. After he left, Nova and Lyra stood in silence, trying to process this unexpected turn of events. The apartment's AI dimmed the lights slightly, adjusting to their Celestian circadian rhythms without being asked. Nova, Lyra whispered, moving to the window to watch the rain fall over the dark forest. This isn't what we were taught about Earth, about humans. Nova touched one of the living plants climbing the wall, feeling its life energy pulse against her sensitive fingertips. No, she said softly. It's not. She looked around the apartment again, noting the careful attention to detail, the way it had been prepared for their specific needs. Maybe that's why the Council fears them so much, not because they're primitive, but because they're free, Lyra finished, and for the first time since their sentence, she smiled. In the distance, thunder rolled over the mountains, and Nova found herself wondering what other surprises this strange new world and its intriguing guardian had in store for them. Dawn painted the mountains in shades of gold when Nova found herself in James's primary research lab. She hadn't expected to be unable to sleep, but Earth's sounds, wind in the trees, distant animal calls, the constant subtle movement of living things, had kept her mind racing with questions. The lab itself was a testament to human ingenuity, where Celestian facilities were sterile and standardized. This space hummed with creative chaos. Half-finished projects littered workbenches, holographic models floated in various stages of completion, and every surface seemed to tell a story of trial and error, of learning through failure, something forbidden on Celestia. Couldn't sleep either. James's voice came from behind her. He held two steaming mugs of something that smelled unlike anything she'd encountered before. What is that? Nova asked, her enhanced senses analyzing the complex aroma. Coffee, Earth's greatest contribution to galactic civilization. He offered her one of the mugs with a slight smile. Though I suspect the Council doesn't include that in their reports about us primitive humans. Nova accepted the drink, her fingers brushing his for a moment. The sensation sent an unexpected shiver through her arm. On Celestia, casual touch was discouraged, seen as inefficient and emotionally compromising. Here, it seemed to happen naturally, without protocol or permission. I was looking at your quantum interface designs, she said, gesturing to one of the holographic displays. You're trying to bridge the gap between human and machine consciousness. James nodded, moving to stand beside her. The goal is to help people with severe neurological conditions regain function. But we hit a wall with the processing speed. He glanced at her. I suspect you might have some insights on that. Nova studied the designs more carefully, seeing both the brilliance and the limitations. On Celestia, this would be restricted technology, Class 1 clearance only. And what would you do with it if it wasn't restricted? The question hung in the air between them. Nova took a sip of coffee, letting the rich flavor ground her thoughts. I would start by reconfiguring the quantum matrix to account for organic neural patterns. Your design treats the brain like a computer, but it's more like. She gestured to the forest visible through the windows, like that. Chaos and order working together. James's eyes lit up with understanding. Show me. Hours slipped by as they worked, Nova's Celestian knowledge combining with James's innovative human approaches. She found herself repeatedly surprised by his intuitive leaps, the way he could take her theoretical suggestions and find practical applications she hadn't considered. Around midday, Lyra joined them, bringing food that she'd apparently learned to prepare using Earth ingredients. The AI taught me about human nutrition requirements, she explained, setting down plates of something she called stir-fry. Did you know they can extract energy from almost any organic material? Their digestive system is remarkably adaptive, unlike everything else about us primitive humans, James asked with a raised eyebrow. Lyra blushed, her skin shifting to a deeper blue. I didn't mean. He's teasing you, Nova realized aloud, recognizing the playful tone that would have been considered highly inappropriate on Celestia. Humans use humor to diffuse social tension. Among other things, James agreed, taking a bite of Lyra's cooking. This is excellent, by the way. Better than what I usually manage. As they ate, Nova found her attention drawn to the way James moved, the efficiency and grace that belied the common Celestian belief that humans were clumsy and unrefined. She caught herself studying the lines of his face as he explained a particularly complex engineering challenge, the passion in his eyes when he talked about helping people. Nova, his voice snapped her back to attention. You okay? You seemed lost in thought. I was just. She paused, choosing her words carefully. On Celestia, showing emotion during technical discussions is considered a sign of mental instability. But you, the way you care about the work, about its impact, it makes the science better, doesn't it? James set down his fork, his expression serious. Emotion isn't a flaw in the system, Nova. It's what drives us to improve, to solve problems, to help others. The Council might see that as a weakness, but here on Earth, it's our greatest strength. Later that evening, as Nova and Lyra prepared for bed in their apartment, Lyra spoke softly. I saw how you looked at him today. Nova froze. I don't know what you mean. On Celestia, they'd say you're compromised. That emotional attachment to a human is a sign of cultural contamination. Lyra moved to stand in front of her friend. But we're not on Celestia anymore. And I saw how he looks at you too. Lyra, I'm just saying. Lyra continued with a gentle smile. Maybe being contaminated by human emotions isn't the worst punishment the Council could have given us. Nova turned to look out at the night sky, so different from Celestia's violet heavens. A shooting star streaked across the darkness, and she remembered reading that humans made wishes on such occurrences, another irrational, emotional practice that somehow felt more meaningful than all the logical rituals of their homeworld. We should focus on the work, she said finally. The quantum interface could help so many people. Of course, Lyra agreed, but her knowing smile remained. Though I suspect helping people isn't the only thing that makes your heart beat faster around our human guardian. Nova didn't respond, but as she lay in bed that night, listening to Earth's living darkness, she couldn't deny that something was changing inside her, something that had nothing to do with punishment or exile, and everything to do with discovering that the heart could have its own kind of logic, one that even the most advanced Celestian engineering couldn't explain. The warning came at sunrise. James's security AI detected the Celestian ship entering Earth's atmosphere. Its stealth systems nearly perfect, but not quite perfect enough. Nova watched the tracking data with her heart in her throat, recognizing the vessel's signature. Enforcer class, she whispered, her skin paling slightly. They only send those for high-priority cases. James stood beside her in the control room, his shoulder just touching hers. Over the past weeks, such casual contact had become normal, comfortable. Now it felt like a dangerous indulgence. What do they want? To check on our punishment, Lyra said from her station, her fingers flying over the holographic controls. To make sure we're properly subjugated. Nova saw James's jaw tighten. In the months since their arrival, they'd accomplished more than she'd thought possible. The quantum interface was nearly ready for human trials, and they'd started work on adapting Celestian atmospheric purification technology for Earth's environment. Every day brought new discoveries, new collaborations, new reasons to smile. and other feelings, ones that made Nova's breath catch whenever James looked at her too long. "Then let's give them what they want to see," James said grimly. "How long until they land?" 20 minutes, Lyra reported. "It's Enforcer Vax. He was at our trial." Nova remembered him, tall and cold as space itself, with cybernetic enhancements that made him more machine than person. The perfect enforcer of Celestian law. James's hand found hers, squeezing gently. "We'll handle this. Just play your parts. You're my property, remember." The last words came out bitter, like they burned his tongue. The Enforcer's ship landed with precise brutality, its engines scorching a perfect circle on the pad. Vax emerged like a nightmare in chrome and black, his cybernetic eye scanning everything with mechanical efficiency. "James Chen," he said, his voice modulated to inspire fear. "I come to inspect your acquisitions." They stood in the main hall, Nova and Lyra with their heads bowed as they'd been taught, James playing the role of stern master. The act made Nova's stomach turn, but she kept her face carefully blank. "They serve adequately," James said, his voice cold in a way she'd never heard before. "The Council's punishment appears to be effective." Vax's cybernetic eye whirred as it focused on Nova. "The terms of their exile require regular verification of their status as property. I will need to interview them separately." Nova felt James tense beside her, but knew he couldn't object without raising suspicion. She stepped forward, still keeping her eyes down. "Yes, Enforcer." The interview room was small and sterile, reminiscent of Celestia. Vax's enhances scanned her continuously as he asked his questions. "You work in the humans' laboratory?" "Yes, Enforcer. Under strict supervision." "And your living conditions?" "Basic. Adequate for maintaining function. You understand that any attempt to exceed your station will result in immediate termination?" "Yes, Enforcer." The questions continued, each designed to probe for signs of rebellion or independence. Nova played her part perfectly, years of Celestian social training serving her well. "But then, your biosignatures show elevated hormones when in proximity to the human," Vax said, his organic eye narrowing. "Explain." Nova's heart stuttered, but she kept her voice steady. "Fear response, Enforcer, as intended by the punishment." Vax stood, looming over her. "Remember, Nova of House Technica, you are here to learn the price of defiance. The Council watches. Always." After interviewing Lyra, Vax conducted a thorough inspection of the facility. Nova watched in silent tension as he passed the hidden servers containing their real work. The prototypes that could help millions. One wrong move, one slip in their act. "Your property appears properly subjugated," Vax finally announced to James. "However, the Council has concerns about Earth's growing technological advancement. We will be monitoring more closely in the future." Only after the Enforcer's ship disappeared into the clouds did Nova allow herself to breathe normally again. She found herself trembling, the strain of maintaining the deception taking its toll. "Hey," James's voice was soft as he turned her to face him. "You're safe. Both of you are safe." Nova looked up into his eyes, seeing the worry there, the anger at what they'd been forced to perform. Without thinking, she reached up to touch his face, tracing the line of his jaw with fingers that could detect every minute change in his expression. "He knows," she whispered. About how I feel when I'm near you. The hormone changes." James caught her hand in his, pressing it more firmly against his cheek. "Let them know. Let them send their enforcers and their threats. They can't control this. Can't control us." "James," Nova's voice caught as he pulled her closer. Behind them, Lyra quietly slipped from the room, a small smile on her face. "We'll find a way," he promised, his forehead resting against hers. "To protect Earth, to help people, to be together. Whatever it takes." As his lips found hers, Nova realized that this feeling, this connection, this defiance of everything she'd been taught, was worth any punishment the Council could devise. In seeking to break her spirit, they had instead freed her heart. But as they stood there, finding comfort in each other's arms, neither of them saw the small drone Vax had left behind, recording everything with its unblinking eye, sending its data back to the cold halls of Celestian power. The encrypted transmission came 3 days after Vax's visit, hidden in the quantum noise between stars. Lyra intercepted it during her late-night monitoring shift, her hands shaking as she decoded the message using skills that would have earned her immediate termination on Celestia. "Nova, James." Her voice echoed through the facility's comm system. "You need to see this. Now." They arrived together, Nova's silver hair slightly disheveled, James still pulling on a jacket. Their closeness was open now, no longer hidden, though the weight of Vax's visit still hung over them. "Look," Lyra said, projecting the decoded transmission into the air. Complex Celestian data structures flowered in the darkness, beautiful and terrible. Nova's breath caught as she read. "No, they wouldn't." "What is it?" James asked, his hand finding hers instinctively. "It's a colonization plan," Nova translated, her voice hollow. "Earth isn't just a place of exile. It's a test site. They've been sending their criminals here to study human responses, to learn our weaknesses. They're planning a full invasion within the next solar cycle." James's grip tightened. "How many ships?" "Hundreds," Lyra whispered. "They'll overwhelm Earth's defenses before anyone knows what's happening. Then they'll implement their social restructuring protocols." "The case system," Nova finished. "They'll turn Earth into another Celestia. Billions will be relegated to the lower castes, denied education, healthcare, basic rights." The lab fell silent except for the soft hum of equipment. Through the windows, dawn was breaking over the mountains, Earth's sun painting the sky in colors that still amazed Nova with their wild beauty. "We can't let this happen," James said finally. "We have to stop them." Nova turned to him, seeing the determination in his eyes. "James, their technology is centuries ahead of Earth's. Their ships have shields that can withstand nuclear weapons. Their neural disruptors can disable entire populations without damaging infrastructure. But they have weaknesses," Lyra interjected, pulling up more data. "The quantum interface project we've been working on. Nova, remember what you said about human neural patterns being more like a forest than a computer." Nova's eyes widened as she understood. Their systems are built on pure logic, perfect order. They've eliminated chaos from their equations because they see it as primitive, inefficient. "But chaos is part of life," James finished. "Part of being human, part of love." He looked at Nova with an intensity that made her heart race. "That's why they fear it so much." Over the next hours, they worked feverishly, combining human ingenuity with Celestian knowledge in ways the Council had never imagined possible. Lyra's fingers flew over the controls as she adapted their quantum interface designs into something new, something that had never existed on either world. "If we broadcast this signal through Earth's satellite network," she explained, "it will create a quantum field that disrupts their neural suppressors. Their weapons will be useless. But we'll need access to every major satellite on the planet," James said. "That means going public, warning Earth's governments about the threat." "They'll never believe us in time," Nova said softly. "And the moment we try, the Council will know. They'll accelerate their plans." She looked at the data again, at the massive fleet hiding behind Jupiter's moons. "We need a different approach." "What are you thinking?" James asked, knowing that look in her eyes. "We use their own arrogance against them. They think humans are primitive, driven by emotion rather than logic." She smiled slightly. "So let's show them exactly how powerful emotion can be." The plan they crafted over the next hours was either brilliant or suicidal, possibly both. It would require perfect timing, absolute trust, and a kind of courage that Celestian society had bred out of its people generations ago. As they finished the preparations, Nova found herself alone with James in the quantum lab. The rising sun cast long shadows through the trees outside, and somewhere in the distance, A wolf howled, a sound that would have terrified her months ago, but now felt like a song of freedom. "If this works," she said quietly, "it will change everything. Not just for Earth, but for Celestia too. Millions of people in the lower castes will realize they don't have to live under the Council's control." "And if it fails?" James asked, though his tone made it clear he already knew her answer. "Then we fail together." She turned to face him fully. "James, I need you to know what I feel for you. It's not just chemical reactions or hormonal responses like Vax believed. It's something the Council never let us experience, never let us even imagine was possible." He pulled her close, his warmth chasing away the cold fear of what lay ahead. "I know. I've known since that first day in the lab, when you looked at my primitive human designs and saw not what they were, but what they could become." Nova kissed him then, pouring everything she couldn't say into the contact. Behind them, Lyra cleared her throat. "The quantum field generators are ready," she said with a small smile, "and Earth's sun is about to rise over Celestia's night side. It's time." Nova took one last look at James, memorizing every detail of his face. Then she straightened her spine, ready to face whatever came next. "Let's show the Council what love can really do," she said, and reached for the controls that would either save two worlds or doom them both. The Celestian invasion fleet emerged from hyperspace like a swarm of crystal daggers, their ships catching Earth's sunlight in prismatic arrays that would have been beautiful if they weren't harbingers of enslavement. On Earth's surface, Nova, James, and Lyra watched through the quantum observatory as humanity's last free dawn threatened to become its last dawn of freedom. "Primary fleet approaching lunar orbit," Lyra reported, her fingers dancing across holographic controls. "Detecting neural suppressor systems powering up." James stood at the main quantum interface terminal, the culmination of their work humming with potential energy. "Satellite network is ready. Every communication system on Earth will carry our signal." Nova took her position at the center console, where streams of data from both human and Celestian technology converge. The plan was insane, using the neural patterns of human love, hope, and defiance as a weapon against Celestian logic. But insanity, she had learned, was sometimes the most logical choice of all. "Incoming transmission," Lyra announced. "It's the Council." The holographic projection filled the room, showing the familiar cold faces of the Celestian leadership. The chief counselor's cybernetic implants gleamed as he spoke. "Nova of House Technica, you have been detected engaging in unauthorized emotional pair bonding with your human owner." His voice held no emotion, only cold certainty. "This violation, combined with your continued attempts to subvert our social order, has left us no choice but to accelerate Earth's integration into the Celestian hierarchy." Nova stepped forward, standing tall. "You mean Earth's enslavement?" "Order is not slavery," the counselor replied. "Your time among humans has contaminated your logic. Their primitive emotions have." "Their emotions are exactly what you fear," Nova cut in. "Because they're what you can't control, what you can never understand." She nodded to James, who activated the quantum interface. Across Earth's surface, satellites began broadcasting a signal unlike anything either civilization had seen before, the neural patterns of human love, amplified and transformed through Celestian quantum technology. The Council members' expressions flickered as the signal reached their ships. What is this?" The chief counselor's cybernetics sparked slightly. "These patterns are chaotic, irrational. They're human," James said proudly. "Every hope, every dream, every act of love and courage. Everything you tried to breed out of your people." On their screens, they watched as the signal spread through the Celestian fleet. Ships began to falter as their purely logical systems encountered patterns they couldn't process. Neural suppressors designed to impose order found themselves overwhelmed by the beautiful chaos of human emotion. But the Council had one last card to play. "If we cannot have Earth," the chief counselor snarled, his facade of logic cracking, "then neither will you." He raised his hand, revealing a quantum detonator. Our ships carry enough force to crack this planet's crust. If our order cannot prevail, then chaos will consume all. That's when Lyra made her move. While Nova and James had drawn their attention, she had been quietly infiltrating the fleet's quantum network, using skills learned from both worlds. "You forgot something," she said, her voice strong. "You forgot about the lower castes on your own ships, the ones you never noticed, never thought could matter." With a gesture, she opened communications channels throughout the Celestian fleet. Thousands of voices, engineers, maintenance workers, servants, all hearing the truth for the first time. Hearing about a world where status wasn't determined at birth, where knowledge wasn't rationed like a precious resource. "They're shutting down their own ships," James reported, watching in amazement as vessel after vessel went dark. "The lower castes are rising up." The chief counselor's image flickered as his ship lost power. This is impossible. Emotion cannot triumph over logic. Love cannot defeat order." Nova took James's hand, feeling the strength of their connection. "Love is the highest logic," she said. "And today, it's setting everyone free." The quantum detonator in the counselor's hand fizzled and died as his ship's systems failed completely. Across the fleet, ships hummed powerless in space as their crews, elite and lower caste alike, experienced real freedom for the first time. "Earth's governments are responding," Lyra reported. "They're offering assistance to the disabled ships, offering sanctuary to any who want to defect." She smiled. "A lot of them want to defect." Nova turned to James, seeing in his eyes the same mix of triumph and wonder she felt. "We did it," she whispered. "We actually did it." He pulled her close. "We showed them something stronger than their perfect order. The power of human hearts working together. And Celestian hearts too," Lyra added, joining their embrace. "We're living proof that both worlds are stronger together." As Earth's sun rose higher, casting its light on a future neither world had imagined possible, Nova looked at the family she had found in exile. James, who had shown her that love wasn't weakness but the greatest strength of all. Lyra, whose quiet courage had helped topple an empire. And Earth itself, the primitive world that had taught her what real civilization looked like. "So," James said with a smile, "what should we do with all this peaceful cooperation between worlds?" Nova's eyes sparkled. "I have some ideas about combining Celestian quantum engineering with human neural patterns. Think of the possibilities for healing, for learning, for exploration." "First," Lyra interrupted with a laugh, "maybe we should help sort out this whole peaceful revolution thing. And," she gave Nova and James a knowing look, "maybe plan a wedding. Since we're combining cultures and all." Nova blushed silver, but James just pulled her closer. "I think that's the most logical suggestion I've heard all day." As they looked out over the mountains together, Nova realized that the Council's punishment had given her the greatest gift of all. Not just love, but a chance to help build a future where no one, human or Celestian, would ever have to choose between order and emotion, between duty and love. Sometimes, she thought, the heart's logic was the wisest of all. 1 year later, the Chen Nova Quantum Institute stood as a symbol of cooperation between Earth and the reformed Celestian society. Its halls were filled with students from both worlds, learning to combine the best of both cultures. The wedding that had united not just two hearts but two civilizations was remembered as the beginning of a new age. And if anyone visited the institute late at night, they might find its founders, a human, and two former exiles, still working together, still dreaming up new ways to use technology and love to make the universe a little bit better. After all, that was the most logical thing to do.